Hey Channel Insiders, welcome back to Channel Insider Partner POV, your source for untapped opportunities and unfiltered opinions in the IT channel, all to help you make better business decisions. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso. My guest today is Vennard Wright, CEO and founder of PerVista, a services company offering AI-powered security systems meant to stop gun violence before it can happen. Vennard also shares his mission to increase access to opportunities in IT and expand the talent pool. Welcome, Vennard. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Katie. It's great to see you as well.
Thank you so much for being a part of this today. I think that what you're doing over at PerVista is so interesting. And I know the journey that you've been on to get there started, honestly, 30 years ago for you at the top of your IT career. So there's so much that I want to dig into. But why don't we start with the basics here and talk about what PerVista is. This is a fairly new company, I'd say. I believe that you've just celebrated 1 year in operation, but that's not to say you haven't done a lot with that time. So talk to me about what PerVista is.
That's right. So PerVista started, like you said, a little more than a year ago. So in May of 2023, there was a very high-profile incident right here in Prince George's County, which is where we're headquartered, where 3 teenagers ran onto a school bus and attempted to shoot another teen. So thankfully, the gun jammed, but because of that, it really got a process started that led to the creation of PerVista. And that process was our local state's attorney, Aisha Braveboy, reached out and asked a question: what can technology do to keep this from happening again in the future? So me and the team, we went off and we did research to see what existed in the market and to see what the capabilities were in terms of technology. And we developed a platform that uses artificial intelligence to analyze video streams from surveillance cameras in real time to detect firearms. When we detect a firearm, we notify police in real time. And the goal is to cut down on active shooter events in schools, hospitals, and other public places. So that's where we are as a company, and we've made a lot of progress since that date in May of 2023.
You've been a CIO, a fractional CIO, you've led an MSP, you've pretty much done it all to be able to bring you to this point. So when you're approaching your customers, and I should also stop there and ask, who are your customers? What kinds of verticals do they look like? Because when we talk about security, that's not necessarily a niche thing that people need. It's everywhere. It's something that everyone needs. But for you, who are your typical customers?
Sure. So we do work with a lot of nonprofits. So the National School Boards Association is one of our more prominent customers. We work with the American Association for Exporters and Importers, Nuclear Innovation Alliance. Those are just examples of nonprofits that we work with. We also do work with small and medium-sized companies as well. We work with governments, we work with universities, we work with sports teams. And what we see across each one of those verticals is that really technology tends to be the same. Just about everyone uses Microsoft 365 and other technologies that tend to be ubiquitous across the board, which is what really amplified the impact that CrowdStrike had. So what we are looking to do is, number one, to understand those themes across the board and to come up with a strategy that really helps us to be effective in applying as often as possible things that work well in other places. So we are learning from customers in different verticals, but in addition, we want to make sure that those customers are successful. So that's really where we are in the verticals that we work in. And our goal is really to make sure that we are invisible, because if we are doing our jobs, they almost forget that we're there.
I do like that. Forgetting that you're there is important, but it's important also to be there when they need you the most. So walk me through a typical client interaction. And this is where I was going before. When you're approaching clients about this and they're thinking, yeah, security cameras, what's the big deal? What's the difference? Obviously, you and I know what that is. But when you're telling them about the service that's involved with this, walk me through everything that the client is getting, even after implementation.
So the goal is really to make sure that they do have peace of mind. So the world is becoming a more complex place, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's becoming worse. It's just that there is ready access to firearms and weapons. And this isn't an attack on the Second Amendment, because certainly we do have the ability under the Constitution to have the right to firearms. But at the same time, it should be done lawfully. So what we're looking to do is to make sure that there is a balance between the two, so that when people are in public places, they're free to go about and enjoy that place and to feel safe that nothing is going to happen. So what we do, number one, is take a look at the facility. So our solution works best when it's both internal and external cameras. And what I mean by that is the building where we are, there is an armed security guard in the lobby. But the reality is that by the time someone were to come into the lobby, it could be too late. So in that case, what we're looking to do is to make sure that there's visibility in terms of someone walking up from the parking lot to the lobby. So that's part of what we're looking to do, so to make sure that there is a line of sight into areas where they might not see otherwise. In addition to that, that's combined with security cameras on the inside to make sure that certain common areas are also covered. So we're looking at other use cases that will expand beyond weapons, but the goal is really to make sure that customers are feeling safe in multiple ways. So with that being said, the solution is only as good as the cameras. So in addition to that, what we're looking to do once the solution is in place to make sure that those cameras and the system is performing the way that they expect it to. So we optimize over time, and a good example of where that's going to be necessary is, of course, with the bubble cameras where there's a globe over the camera. Over time, those can become foggy, which will cut down on the efficacy of detection. So sometimes it's necessary to replace the cameras, sometimes it's necessary to move cameras, and sometimes it's necessary to also tune the solution so that we're not getting false positives. So it's not just to set it and forget it. Our goal is to make sure that it's getting better over time.
One thing when we were originally talking and we first met, something that I want to make sure that I do point out is that this is not facial recognition. This is something that is directly identifying a risk based on a firearm being on a person. So I think the best way to kind of explain that is to walk through a customer success story in which, whether this be a test that you did or a real world situation, how does it work? And what's the aftermath once it's able to ping the police and do what it does best?
That's absolutely right. So I do want to double down on the point that you made. We're not detecting people. We're not detecting faces. We're detecting weapons. So our goal, and because we are looking to work with schools, we are looking to work with hospitals, there are certain standards that are in place like HIPAA and FERPA that protect people's privacy. So what happens is when we detect that there is a firearm, we're making a match against our data set of firearms. So in that case, we're not just saying, okay, it's a firearm, but we're also saying that we're about 95% sure that it's not just a firearm, but a long gun, because the response for an AR-15 is going to be different from the response for a 9mm. So we do want to make sure that police have full situational awareness, and those alerts are sent in a couple of different ways. So number one, it does come up in the platform, but in addition, it also sends a text message. It also sends an email. So a lot of people are familiar with what happens with Ring, Alarm.com, and ADT and some other providers. But the difference between our solution and those is that in addition to detecting people, vehicles, and animals, we detect firearms. So it functions in very much the same way where that alert comes across. And what happens is we don't want police to come when there isn't an incident or if something is happening that should be happening. I'll go back to the example that I gave before of the armed security guard. They have the right to carry a gun. So does a police officer. So in that case, there is a manual step that's in place where we look and we verify that, okay, this is a firearm, but it's a police officer who's carrying it. Or that's not really a firearm. And in that case, we won't send the alert to the police. So we do have the ability to send alerts to people in real time. So if it is a security guard, we can send it to the security guard at the same time we see that alert. But before it goes to police, we do manually verify so that we're cutting down on false positives and not having police respond to something they shouldn't respond to.
Very much. And I think that human real-time overlap is something where we constantly talk about AI in the form of being the bad guy in the situation or the bad robot, whatever you want to view it as. So I think where we speak to AI as changing the world for the better, this is really where it comes in. Computer vision meets people. On top of that, where do you see the differentiators in this particular offering? Because computer vision, it's not the first, it's not necessarily a new term, it's newer, but I have heard of other offerings that do something similar. What would you say when somebody asks you, where do you draw the line in the sand and say, we're over here and the rest are over there? What's your greatest differentiator?
So the biggest thing that we're looking to do to differentiate is that we are able to move our solution around. As I mentioned before, the world is becoming a much more complex place, which means that crimes happen in different places. Crime really does evolve. So we've really been doubling down on making sure that our solution isn't just for office buildings and public places, but also a good example would be an outside demonstration. So if there is a concert or something else that's happening outdoors, our solution is able to protect that event by incorporating drone technology. So During this interview, I was a little afraid that you might hear us testing the drones here in the office because that's a big part of what we're looking to do. And so that really factors in that criminals are looking to see where surveillance cameras are. So drones have the ability to close those gaps because drones can move from location to location, whereas a surveillance camera is installed. So that's something big that we're doubling down on to make sure that we're also able to account for the evolution of crime and things that change over time.
Now, the current customer base that you have, knowing that you're just over a year old, are they only here in America?
No, so we just signed a deal with over in Brazil as well. So we are an international company at this point, we're proud to say. So we're seeing that the same challenges that exist here in the US are starting to pop up around the globe as well. So we are looking to make sure that we're not just keeping people safe here in America, but we're also keeping people safe around the world as well.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. You did operate an MSP prior to PerVista. Can you talk to me about how you feel that prepared you for the needs of customers in this managed service offering space?
Sure. So we started Wave Welcome in 2020, and some would say that wasn't the best decision because, of course, we know there was a global pandemic that was going on at the same time. But for us, it did work out. So Wave Welcome really experienced a bit of an evolution as well. And the way that we evolved is we started off being a fractional CIO offering. So the reason that was significant is because, of course, a lot of small and medium-sized organizations can't afford to hire a CIO. So we were looking to really offer that advisory level service and work with organizations that didn't have access to someone who could make those decisions or the expertise to make certain decisions as well. But over time, what happened is people started offering to outsource their IT to us. So we evolved into becoming an IT MSP. We really didn't set out to become one. So we did work with organizations across industries, which was really the first foray into really offering common themes that work across industries. So it prepared us in that we really understood what it meant to be a partner. And I'll give you an example of that. So I mentioned the National School Boards Association. So they've experienced some changes over time where they used to have an internal IT department, but because of different factors, they had to make the tough decision to eliminate their internal IT department. And they also needed to cut down on cost. So one of the things that we do take pride in is being able to offer those services at a lower cost. And the reason we're able to do that is because we also work with entry-level IT talent. So lots of young people are very interested in getting into IT, but the reality is they just don't have the hands-on experience in terms of breaking into those careers. So what we do is we do bring them in and for apprenticeships. We give them the experience they need, and the ones that emerge as the top-level talent end up getting a full-time job. But that also helps us to keep our costs down. So we have created a career pipeline where we are bringing in entry-level IT talent, giving them the experience, but also positioning Prince George's County as a tech destination. So that allows us to keep our costs low, but it also allows us to make sure that people are getting opportunities to break into IT careers.
Talk to me about that a little bit more. Do you see that as the answer to the talent shortage and retention problems that we're seeing across the tech industry right now?
Yeah, I think it's a start. Absolutely. So certainly here in Prince George's County, we're not known as being a hotbed of tech talent, but there's certainly an appetite from young people to get into IT. So what I see happening here is, number one, there are lots of companies that really do need tech support. So of course, it's cost prohibitive a lot of times to get that tech support. So number one, we do give the young people that experience they need in terms of the internships by partnering with Employ Prince George's. So Employ Prince George's here is our workforce development partner. So they get lots of grants and other opportunities for funding from the federal government and other places as well. So it helps to defray the costs. So number one, the young person is able to say, yes, I'm interested. They come and get the training, but then they partner with employers. So for employers, it does give them the ability to bring in talent that they couldn't afford to bring in otherwise. And for small and medium-sized companies that couldn't afford the talent, they're able to also get access to the talent at a lower cost. So to answer your question about whether that's the answer, it certainly can be if you have partners that are willing to put certain programs in place. So Prince George's County, we do have the appetite to do that because one of the things we touched on before when we spoke is the fact that Historically, Prince George's County was the wealthiest minority county in the country. So as of the 2020 census, we lost that designation to a neighboring county controversially. And what we saw is that there was an opportunity to really raise the per capita income of people in Prince George's County by focusing on technology as an industry. But in order for that to happen, there have to be deliberate interceptor strategies in place. So we're looking forward to being a big part of that. And certainly other counties and localities around the country could do the same thing by focusing on technology as a preferred industry and being creative about workforce development programs that give young people hands-on experience. We do, as a company, subscribe to conscious capitalism. So for us, conscious capitalism is not just focusing on profits, which every responsible company does do. Of course, we're looking to make money, but we also look at different types of capital. So we do look at human capital, which is people, social capital, which are networks, and the natural capital, which is the environment. So we know that in each one of those, there are stakeholders that we should be paying attention to. So we have measurements to make sure that our business model is moving the levers in each one of those areas. So that's a big part of the way that we operate. And certainly we're looking to make sure that we do that even better moving forward.
Very inspiring to hear. And I'm sure that the young people that will be listening to this podcast can reach out to you and find out more about that. Love the idea of putting them in that direction. A couple more questions I have for you about PerVista itself. Talk to me about who are the vendors, hyperscalers, and so on that are helping you run? Who are the ones that are helping to power you?
So we are an AWS partner. So we are certified as a select tier partner. So we have a lot of AWS technologies that's built into it. So number one, we are using Bedrock for some of the AI components. We're also using recognition and for machine learning and Kinesis for the camera streams. So that's certainly a big part of our technology. We use others as well. So certainly no one can get away from using Microsoft for certain things. So we use Power BI for data analytics. But I would say those are the two biggest ones. So AWS by far is our biggest partner, and it's a critical part of our solution. So we are really doubling down on that relationship because it also gives us the ability to go around the world. So as we deploy to other countries, we can deploy an instance that's in their country. And that's one of the beauties of partnering with AWS.
As far as going on through the rest of the year, you talked about that talent pool that you're really trying to invest in with new and young talent. Are there any other philanthropic or charitable investments that PerVista, you yourself, Vennard, are making in 2024 that you'd like to talk about?
Absolutely. So I did write a book at the beginning of 2024 called Cracking the C Code. And what Cracking the C Code does is it focuses on the soft skills that are necessary for people to succeed in their careers. It's based on my own career, so I do share some anecdotes where I had to learn certain lessons the hard way. And hopefully by reading the book, people are able to avoid experiencing those same painful lessons that I did. But the reason that's significant is because as I was going through my career at the C level, I did see that there wasn't a lot of diversity at those top levels. And of course, diversity means a lot of different things. It's not just race, it's not just gender, it's age, it's neurodiversity, it's a lot of different things. So what I'm looking to do is to make sure that there is diversity at the top levels by making sure that people understand, number one, what's necessary for them to get to that level, and then number two, what's necessary for them to be successful at that level. So we do offer trainings. I do talks a lot of times here at our office and at other places as well, just to make sure that we're training people in those lessons. And those are free classes. And we've also rolled out a mobile app. Give anyone who wants a copy of the book a copy of the book. It's also available for free online. So that's really a big part of what we're looking to do. And that's just my part of making sure there's greater diversity at the C level.
If I'm an end user and I see this and I say, this is exactly what my business or my nonprofit needs, how can we reach out to you that way?
Sure. So you can reach out to me directly at vwright@pervista.com, and that's PerVista.com. And our web address is pervista.ai. So you can reach out to me either way, but I also have a personal page, Vennard W. I have the designation of being the only Vennard Wright in the world. So that's VENNARDW.com is my personal page. And I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. So I do make sure I'm communicating all of our latest developments across LinkedIn. And I certainly welcome the connections and the ideas and certain things in terms of what we can do better.
Vennard, it's been a pleasure getting to speak with you and learn more about PerVista. I'm so excited to see where you go throughout the rest of the year and into 2025. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Katie. It's been a pleasure as well.
Thank you so much to Vennard for joining me today, and thank you for watching or listening. You can check out all episodes of Channel Insider Partner POV on channelinsider.com or watch on our YouTube page at channelinsider_news and trends. You can also listen to every episode as a podcast on your preferred podcast listening platform. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to never miss an episode. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.